Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the KETIV Autodesk Virtual Academy. As usual, I'm Nigel Abai. Today, I'm joined by my colleague Daniel here, who's done a couple of these now, and we're going to go over a little bit of modifying some 2D sketches in Inventor today. Daniel, if you want to explain a little bit about what we're doing today and why.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Nigel. Yeah, basically we're just going to go over one of the some of the tools found in Inventor, specifically targeting the sketches in the 2D environments before your parts get turned into 3D environments. So working with those sketches and all of the tools that Inventor provides, so that it can be an easy experience for our users. This is particularly useful and should be exciting for those of you who are coming from like vector-based programs such as AutoCAD and who aren't really familiar with 3D. You'll see that a lot of these tools will be really familiar for you, and you should be excited about that because you can feel comfortable. And even for those of you who are already familiar with Inventor, I'll be going into a little bit more of the slight details. There's not too much, but some of the things that you may be able to find useful. And lastly, we're going to just touch on sharing sketches and things like that. So yeah, I'll just go right into it. Yeah, so if I switch over to Inventor real quick, I have for us in this Inventor environment, it's just a very simple extrusion part that I made off of this sketch. To modify sketches, basically just start with going back into the sketch. You can just double click here on the sketch and it'll take you right to it. Basically, the tools we'll be going over are up here in the modify panel of your sketch tab. Right? So these are the tools, move through offset, and yeah, some of you guys might be wondering why we would use move or copy when we can simply just drive parameters like is what Inventor is made for by editing these or things like that. But even move is still useful because of times when you have reference geometry, reference points, a point that you need to go to directly, and that point isn't as set as it would be if you had parameters. For instance, I'm going to just make a reference point for us. Let's assume that this came from another part. I don't know exactly what my parameters would be to get me to that spot, and in this case, a move would be much more efficient, much better, much easier. So I'm going to hit move. This window is going to come up for us. It's telling me that I need to select the object. I'm just going to click and drag top right, bottom left, and it's going to select my objects for me. Then I'm going to go back up, hit this to select the base point. I want this base point. Now you're going to get a window that says there's dimensions and constraints on this geometry that's going to prevent it from moving. It's asking if you want to relax those. By saying yes, it's telling the program that you don't care about those dimensions, you want it to move with your mouse. So I'm going to say yes. So now as you can see, I'm going to move this, and the dimensions will actually change along with it. And it'll actually snap right to that reference point. Right, as you can see, some of these dimensions are like decimal points, 0.27, and so on and so forth. So now that you know the dimensions, you can also know like the tolerances if you're machining something and you need it to fit into a specific part somewhere. You know exactly what you would need if you can do it. If you can't, you can go back and adjust so that you can machine these types of parts or whatever you need to do. And so I'm just gonna undo that, go back, go over the next tool. Copy is very similar to move in that it's the same. It's going to prompt you to select the objects, and you're going to select the base point. The difference is that it's going to keep a copy in the original position. So I'm going to also reference the point. I can make several copies. If I right-click and continue, it'll end the tool. Yeah, at this point, I'm going to just go over really quickly some of these options that you're seeing here. Clipboard. There's also a clipboard or copy command available in the move as well. What it does is just copies to your Control-C. Precise input, what this allows for is if you know the exact X and Y directions an amount that you need to go, you can use this option, the precise input, and then this optimize for single selection. This is actually a really convenient tool that nearly all of the modify tools have. By selecting this, I can now make a single selection, and then it'll automatically switch over to the base point. That way I don't have to go back up and select the base point again. Just quickly noting that it's only for a single selection, so if I need to make more than one selection, I would not use this. But if I know exactly what I need to copy or move or scale, so on and so forth, I would use the optimize for single selection so that it'll know exactly what it is. Yeah, and I'm just going to turn it off for this demo, but I actually like to keep it on. And yeah, that's the copy command. I'm quickly just going to go over to the rotate. Similar to the copy and the move. If I had optimized for single selection, it would switch over for me, but I'm just going to leave it off. Select it, select the center point. It's basically the point that it's going to revolve around. And then now I can rotate it. Sorry. I think some of my constraints are tying it down here. I'm just going to delete some of these. There you go. Yeah, sometimes the constraints on the rotate will prevent you from rotating it. Typically that prompt should come up, but for whatever reason it wasn't. And as you can see, you can rotate it in whatever direction according to your mouse, or you can actually specify the angle, like a 90 degree, if you know those dimensions. But yeah, that's the rotate command, and again, the optimize for single selection. It'll allow you to make a single selection, and then it'll just switch over to the center point. Yeah. Quickly gonna go over to the scale command now. The scale, what scale does is it will take any of your selections and it will scale the dimensions on them according to a base point. Again, it's going to prompt you and ask you for if you want to relax these geometries, right? So now you can scale it according to your mouse, or you can actually go into your keyboard and type in a scale factor. If I do like 1.5, it'll scale all my dimensions by 1.5. Now this isn't really a commonly used tool, especially for smaller geometries like this that only have 4 dimensions. With 4 dimensions, I can easily just go in here one by one and edit and scale. But if I have a complex geometry that has maybe like 30, whatever, an X number of geometric dimensions that it's just harder to scale one by one, scale might be useful for you, and I would recommend using it. Just on a per use basis, pretty much. And then next is the stretch tool. Sorry, stretch tool is very interesting. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically, if how it works is that is with the window, kind of click and drag to make a window, and then basically anything your window covers completely, like this semicircle, I'm completely covering it, and anything that it's touching, it will get selected. And then if I select the base point, you'll see this prompt, and it'll tell you that your dimensions and your geometries are constrained. But basically, the stretch tool, anything that was completely consumed by the box will remain the same, and it won't stretch. And then anything that your box was touching, it will stretch. So now you can see that the semicircle is intact and it's not moving. It's staying in the same direction and everything. But the lines that I was touching with my mouse, now those are being stretched, as you can see here. So I can change the direction, change the length, shorten it. Yeah. So it's not a really commonly used one, but maybe you'll find it useful for your use case. Offset. This is This is a tool I actually use pretty often. By default, it'll select loops, and then you can drag your mouse in or out, or you can actually specify how much you want it to offset by. If you specify, it'll keep that same radius all the way around on the offset. I'm going to undo this and show you guys some more options that you have with offset that aren't as commonly known about because there's no window for it. But if you actually right-click, there's these two options here, loop select and constraint offset. By default, these are set, but if I turn off loop select, earlier, just by hitting one line here, it selected the entire loop. But now, it will select piece by piece. So I can select 2 pieces, 3 pieces, or I can select just 2 pieces if I hit offset. Then I can right-click to continue. This is a step a lot of people seem to forget if they have loop select off. And you can continue, and it'll just do the 2 that you selected, keeping the constraints the same. I'm going to undo that, turn back my loop select. But I'm going to turn off constraint offset this time, and I'm going to select this loop. I'll show you guys that what this does, it takes the constraints off. Now, I can go in here, dimension 1 by 1, and it only affects this side. So only this was affected. Sorry about that. Whereas this was not affected. So this is not affected by the so now they're not dependent on each other, they're independent. So this is 0.5 and this is 0.25, and it creates crazy shapes. You may want that, you may not. And so I'm going to turn my loops and my constraints back on. Now it's back to normal. I'm going to leave that there for now. For the next tool, I'm just going to create a line for us to demonstrate exactly what it does. And that's the split tool. The split tool, basically any line I hover over that has intersections, it'll cut that geometry at that intersection. So if I hover over this arc, it's going to separate this arc into 2 arcs at that red X. If I hover over this line, it's going to do it at that red X, or if I go closer to this arc, it's going to do it at that X. Similarly, this is useful if you have like different sweeping geometries, or if you have some lines you want like as construction lines. Basically, it just gives you more flexibility or versatility with your geometry to separate and use them as you please, things like that. So, and the last 2 tools that we have in here are the trim and extend. They're very much go hand in hand, but these are probably the 2 more commonly ones that I use. Basically, extend will extend any geometry to the next geometry. It won't extend until you actually click, but it will give you a preview. So if I hover over this line, it will show you where it will extend to, and so on and so forth. It'll also do arcs, so if you keep going, I'll make a complete circle eventually. Right? And to go with that is the trim command. Let's say I did a lot of things that I didn't want, and it's really messy, and I don't like it. I can actually click these lines to erase them, but keep the ones I do want. Things like that. A cool thing with both trim and extend is that they have dynamic trim and dynamic extend. And what that means is that if I click and drag, I'm not sure if you guys can be able to see this, but there's like blue trail. Basically anything that blue trail crosses over, you're now gonna trim. So if I click and drag, I can click, and I can go around and drag. And I'll trim all the things that I went over. Similarly, I can extend all the things that I extend over, things like that. You may get some of these warning messages. Usually it's because of dimensions that you have to remove. So you have to be kind of careful when you're using dynamic extend, dynamic trim, just because if you go too crazy, you may not get what you want. So if you're a little bit more careful, you see that you get a little better result, and so on and so forth. And so, basically those are all the modify commands. Yeah, it's a good review for a lot of Inventor users, but particularly for those curious to transition into Inventor and 3D modeling, you should feel very comfortable here in this space, in this 2D space, especially because a lot of the modify tools look very similar to what you may be familiar with. And yeah, those are the tools. Just going to quickly go over what happens after you've modified your sketch with already a feature. If I finish the sketch, you'll see that nothing happens. There's a sketch there. There's actually no way to reselect your feature. If I edit this feature, I can't just go in and like select these faces now. And so why would I want to edit this sketch in the first place? What you can actually do though is share this sketch. And what this does is it creates another sketch here. It's actually the same sketch. They're dependent on one another, but it's not consumed. And what that means is I can now create another extrude off of the same sketch, go back, and now I can select different profiles, multiple if I want. Now I can do a cut extrude, and it's basically the same thing, but I don't have to create another sketch. I just have to share and edit the first one. I didn't have to do any reference geometries. I didn't have to, yeah, things like that. So it can save you time if you want to share sketches. This is a very quick and easy tool. If you guys aren't familiar with it, I recommend using it. Not only in these cases when you want to go back to sketches, but also when you have to create several features off of the same sketch and they're not the same feature. You want to use the share sketch ability.
Yep. I know before I knew about that tool, I would just copy and paste my sketches onto new ones, and that was like a lot more time consuming than just right-clicking the sketch and hit share. Mm-hmm. It's like way faster.
Yeah, and so and because it's shared, it's still shared even after I created that new feature, so I can create another feature off of that same sketch. It's basically there until forever for you to use. So yeah.
Until you want to stop sharing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you, Daniel. Do you have anything else to go over, or can we jump in Q&A?
No, yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, just quick summary. We just went over all of the tools found in Inventor. Very briefly, there's the move, copy, rotate, so on and so forth. This is very useful for you guys if you guys are moving over from AutoCAD or any other 2D environment, vector-based. Inventor is a parametric-based, but it still has those capabilities. It gives you the versatility and the ability to use Inventor as you need it, or as you want, or as you're comfortable using it. And so, yeah. Any questions, guys?
Definitely. We've got a couple in here. All right, and we have the first question comes from Mark Ramsey. Hey, Ramsey, how's it going? First off, precise input. How do I know where current 0, 0 is?
It's based off your base point. So after you select your base point, that's your 0, 0, and then it's going to go from that base point up X, to the right X, positive, left X.
Yeah, depending on how you're looking at your drawing.
Depending on how you're looking at your drawing, so.
Yeah. And then it changes a little bit if you start typing in zeros and stuff for the X and Y coordinates. It tries to stay on the same plane. It's hard to explain. Daniel, if you want to just jump in Inventor really quick here, and then move, or I guess you can copy something. Just copy something. It'll be easy. Yep. And then if you do precise input on the base, and you type 0 in the X direction, and then 0 in the Y direction, it should go to the origin. But if you only type in 0 in one of the places, it'll go on the it'll like jump to that axis. It's a little interesting how that works. But yeah, 0, 0. If you type in 0, 0, it'll go to the origin of the whole thing. But if you type in other things, it goes based on where your base point was.
It doesn't actually go in the direction of your base point. It just goes off the coordinate system of the origin, and it'll go to precise points. So you kind of have to look at your X, Y, Z axes from your origin. As you can see, the green is your Y axis, and then I believe the X is your that red axis there. So it'll go in.
So it just depends too on like the orientation that you're drawing in, and that can get confusing after a while. So you definitely want to make sure that you're putting everything in the right direction. Sometimes it'll get a little confusing.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not really commonly used, but it's there.
Definitely. And this one comes from Chris. Isn't share the same as making the sketch visible? So not necessarily. You can change the visibility on the sketch. If you change the visibility on the sketch in any of the three places, whether it's that shared location or either of the two extrusions, it'll obviously turn them on for the rest of them. It's kind of, they're all linked. It's the same sketch, basically. So that's that. And then there's an addition to that question here. If not, what's the difference? Example, a sketch is consumed by a feature, making the sketch visible again, then make another feature using the same sketch. So the difference between a shared sketch and then a sketch that is consumed by a feature is you can run a different feature off of the same sketch in the shared location. It doesn't matter if it's visible or not, you can still use the sketch even if it isn't visible for whatever feature you're creating. Let's see. What's the name of that faint blue curvy line that you use to select items? Yeah, Ron, if you could clarify that. Yeah, if you're talking about the line that Daniel's showing on the screen right now, that line is the one for.
It's like dynamic trimming and dynamic extend. Sorry if I wasn't clear, but basically anything like you trail. If to get this to come up, you have to be in trim or extend. You click and then you just drag your mouse around.
Yeah, you hold the mouse down.
Yeah.
And if you hold the mouse down, you can once you cross any line of geometry, it'll cut it or extend it depending on what tool you selected. So what Daniel's doing right now is he's holding his mouse down.
Yeah.
So if he lets go of it at any point in time,
as long as you don't mess up your your dimensioning, you have to be kind of careful, like I said earlier. Basically, yeah. As long as there's no dimensions that's interfering with, it won't give you any problems.
That's correct. And Ron, that is correct. YouTube Ben, that is in AutoCAD. That's similar to the fence command, or not the fence command, but what you call a fence in AutoCAD. It's a little different in Inventor, but essentially the tools are the same. So for those of you who have used AutoCAD in the past or are still using AutoCAD now, I think this is where a lot of the similarities lie between the two programs, which is why it's pretty easy to transition from one to the other. Is a lot of these modify tools are exactly the same in the other tool. There's just no command line to write all these things in.
Yeah.
So definitely that. Let's see here. Before we jump into anything else, I just want to let you know that since you are here for an Inventor topic, might as well invite you all to the Inventor Insider event that KETIV is holding. We're hosting this on December 6th and 7th. I'm going to go ahead and copy the link into the chat box right now, and if Daniel, you want to jump to this link once I share it. That link is ketiv.com/Inventor Insider. Anyways, if for those of you who don't know what Inventor Insider is, we've been talking about it the last couple of AVAs. It's a live event that we're hosting here at KETIV for 2 days. But essentially, it's going to help you shape the future of Inventor, where you can work on future Inventor releases or things that they've been working on for future releases, things like alpha and beta versions of the software. And we're going to bring over, I think, more than half a dozen of the Autodesk team too, for you to talk to, for them to kind of explain their thought process when creating some of these tools. Definitely, share. It gives you an opportunity to share your thoughts on the tool moving forward with the team who makes the tool. Definitely a really great opportunity, kind of a rare opportunity as well as this, it's the one that we're hosting is the only one out here on the West Coast. So definitely if you're interested, go ahead and click that link in the chat and sign up. If you have any questions, let us know. Definitely answer any of those for you. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us today. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. So with that, thank you all for being here, and happy Thanksgiving to you all.